Have you ever felt the pain of giving your best to someone only to be treated as if your presence is ordinary? You answer their messages, you support them when they struggle, you offer your attention, your energy, and your care. Yet somehow, the more you give, the less they seem to appreciate it. This is a lesson many people must learn. When someone takes you for granted, the first instinct is often to give more. More explanations, more affection, more effort, more sacrifice. But life teaches a different truth. Value is not created by chasing. Value is recognized through awareness. The moment you begin to lose yourself trying to keep someone, you unknowingly teach them that your presence requires no effort from them. What is always available is often overlooked. What is respected is what carries boundaries, purpose, and self-respect. If a person has stopped valuing you, do not react with anger. Do not react with desperation. Instead, develop inner strength, become calm, become centered, become disciplined. Psychology is not manipulation when it is used to protect your dignity. It is understanding human nature and responding wisely. One of the most powerful things you can learn when someone takes you for granted is the value of silence. Most people misunderstand silence. They think silence is weakness. They think silence means giving up. They think silence means losing control of the situation. In reality, silence is often the highest form of control. When emotions take over, people rush to speak. They rush to explain themselves. They rush to defend their actions. They rush to convince others of their value. But the more you chase understanding from someone who has stopped appreciating you, the more you reduce your own influence. Human nature works in a very interesting way. People rarely appreciate what constantly demands their attention. They appreciate what makes them reflect. They appreciate what creates space for awareness. They appreciate what allows them to experience the consequences of their own actions. This is why silence is so powerful. When someone takes you for granted, your first instinct may be to send another message, to ask why they changed, to remind them how much you have done for them, to explain your pain, to make them understand what they are risking. Yet every time you do this, you place your emotional state in their hands. You become dependent on their response. You become dependent on their validation. And the moment your peace depends on another person's reaction, you have surrendered your inner power. A disciplined mind chooses a different path. Instead of reacting immediately, it becomes still. Instead of demanding attention, it creates space. Instead of chasing answers, it returns to self-awareness. Silence is not about making someone worried. Silence is not about playing games. Silence is about refusing to betray your own dignity through emotional desperation. There is a profound difference between communication and over-communication. Communication comes from strength. Over-communication comes from fear. Fear says, if I explain one more time, maybe they will understand. Fear says, if I try harder, maybe they will finally value me. Fear says, if I keep reaching out, maybe they will become the person I need them to be. But wisdom understands something important. You cannot force awareness into another human being. People see clearly only when they are ready to see. And sometimes silence becomes the mirror that words could never be. When your constant attention disappears, people begin to notice its absence. When your endless availability ends, people begin to recognize what they once overlooked, not because you manipulated them, but because reality becomes visible. Many people do not recognize value while they are receiving it every day. They recognize value when they experience its absence. This is why silence creates awareness. It removes the noise. It removes the pressure. It removes the constant effort that was hiding the truth. And suddenly a person is left alone with their own thoughts. For the first time, they may begin asking questions. Why is this person no longer chasing me? Why does their energy feel different? Why do I suddenly notice what I ignored before? These questions cannot be created through arguments. They cannot be created through emotional pleading. They emerge naturally when silence creates room for reflection. At the same time, silence transforms you. This is the part most people forget. Silence is not only about what happens in the other person's mind, it is about what happens in yours. When you stop running after someone, you begin to hear yourself again. You begin to recognize how much energy you were spending trying to earn appreciation. You begin to notice how much of your happiness was connected to their behavior. You begin to understand that your value never depended on their recognition. That realization is life-changing. Because true confidence is not built when people choose you. True confidence is built when you choose yourself. Every moment of silence becomes an opportunity to strengthen your character, to strengthen your discipline, to strengthen your emotional stability. You stop checking your phone every few minutes. You stop creating imaginary conversations in your mind. You stop seeking signs and signals. Instead, you return your focus to your purpose. You return your focus to growth. You return your focus to becoming stronger than you were yesterday. And something remarkable begins to happen. The need for validation starts to fade. The need for approval starts to fade. The fear of losing someone starts to fade. In its place comes peace, a quiet confidence, a calm certainty. The understanding that your worth remains intact regardless of who recognizes it. This is the true power of silence. Not that it changes someone else, but that it changes you. And when you change, everything around you begins to change as well. So when someone takes you for granted, resist the urge to react from emotion. Resist the urge to chase what is moving away from you. Stand firm in your self-respect, embrace silence with wisdom, and allow your presence to speak louder than your words ever could. After learning the power of silence, the next lesson becomes equally important. It is the lesson of boundaries. Many people believe that love means unlimited access. They believe caring for someone means always saying yes. They believe being a good partner, friend, or companion requires endless sacrifice. But life repeatedly teaches a different truth. Without boundaries, even the purest form of love can lose its value. When someone begins taking you for granted, it is often not because you cared too much. It is because somewhere along the way you stopped protecting your own limits. You gave your time whenever they asked. You adjusted your plans whenever they needed something. You ignored your own feelings to avoid conflict. You tolerated behavior that made you uncomfortable because you feared losing the connection. At first, these actions may seem harmless. You tell yourself you are being understanding. You tell yourself you are being patient. You tell yourself you are being loving. But when patience exists without boundaries, it slowly transforms into self-neglect. And the unfortunate reality is that people often treat us according to the standards we consistently accept. If you continuously allow disrespect, disrespect becomes normal. If you continuously ignore your own needs, others learn to ignore them too. This is why boundaries create respect. A boundary is not a wall. A boundary is not punishment. A boundary is not an attempt to control another person. A boundary is simply a clear statement of what you will and will not allow in your life. It is an act of self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship. Think about a strong tree. The tree does not bend in every direction simply because the wind demands it. Its roots hold firm, its foundation remains stable. That stability is what gives it strength. Human beings are no different. When you have no boundaries, you become emotionally unstable because your well-being depends entirely on other people's behavior. When you have boundaries, your inner foundation remains strong regardless of what others choose to do. Many people fear setting boundaries because they worry others will become upset. But consider this carefully. If someone only values you when you abandon your own needs, do they truly value you? Or do they simply value the convenience you provide? This question requires courage to answer honestly. Real respect cannot exist where self-abandonment exists. The people who genuinely care about you may not always like your boundaries, but they will learn to respect them. The people who only benefited from your lack of boundaries will often resist them. And that resistance reveals important truths. You see, boundaries have a unique ability to expose intentions. When you stop overextending yourself, you begin to see who appreciates your presence and who merely expects your service. When you stop saying yes to everything, you discover who respects your decisions and who becomes frustrated when they cannot control your actions. This awareness is valuable because clarity is always better than illusion. Many people spend years maintaining relationships built on unhealthy patterns. They confuse constant accommodation with love. They confuse emotional exhaustion with loyalty. They confuse self-sacrifice with virtue. Yet the strongest individuals understand something different. They understand that protecting their peace is not selfish, protecting their energy is not selfish. Protecting their dignity is not selfish, it is necessary. Imagine carrying a cup filled with water. If you continue pouring from that cup without ever refilling it, eventually it becomes empty. You cannot continue giving what you no longer possess. The same principle applies to emotional energy. If you constantly give while ignoring your own needs, exhaustion becomes inevitable, resentment begins to grow, frustration begins to grow, disappointment begins to grow, and eventually the relationship suffers because the foundation was never balanced. Healthy boundaries prevent this. They create balance, they create mutual responsibility, they create an environment where appreciation can exist. One of the most powerful psychological shifts occurs when you stop seeking permission to honor your own limits. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your time. You no longer feel guilty for saying no. You no longer feel guilty for choosing your well-being. Instead, you recognize that every time you honor a boundary, you strengthen your self-respect. And every act of self-respect sends a message, not through words, not through demands, but through behavior. The message is simple: my time has value, my energy has value, my presence has value. People respond differently when they feel this certainty. Why? Because certainty creates respect. The person who constantly compromises their principles appears unsure of their worth. The person who calmly protects their standards demonstrates confidence in their worth. Confidence changes how others perceive you. More importantly, it changes how you perceive yourself. You begin to stand taller. You begin to speak with greater clarity. You begin to make decisions from strength rather than fear. And that transformation is impossible to ignore. Remember, boundaries are not designed to push people away. They are designed to teach people how to treat you. Those who truly value you will rise to meet those standards. Those who do not may drift away. And if they do, you have not lost something valuable. You have gained clarity. Free. So when someone takes you for granted, do not rush to demand appreciation. Strengthen your boundaries, protect your self-respect, and allow your actions to communicate what your words no longer need to explain. Once you understand the power of silence and the importance of boundaries, a deeper lesson begins to emerge. It is a lesson that changes not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. That lesson is self-respect. Many people spend years trying to earn appreciation from others while quietly neglecting their relationship with themselves. They seek recognition. They seek approval. They seek reassurance. They seek proof that they are worthy. And because they depend on external validation, they often find themselves trapped in relationships where their value is constantly questioned. When someone takes you for granted, the pain you feel is not only about their behavior. It is also about what their behavior makes you believe about yourself. You begin asking questions. Am I not good enough? Have I done something wrong? Why do they not appreciate me? Why am I not important to them? These questions can slowly weaken your confidence if you are not careful. Because when another person's opinion becomes the measure of your worth, your emotional stability becomes fragile. One compliment lifts you up, one rejection brings you down, one moment of attention makes you happy. One moment of neglect makes you anxious. This is not freedom, this is emotional dependence. And emotional dependence often begins where self-respect is missing. Self-respect means understanding your value even when others fail to recognize it. It means refusing to lower your standards simply because you fear losing someone. It means maintaining your dignity even when your emotions tempt you to abandon it. Most people think confidence comes from being admired. True confidence comes from self-respect, because admiration can disappear. Attention can disappear, approval can disappear, but self-respect remains with you wherever you go. When a person truly respects themselves, something changes within them. They stop begging for what should be given freely. They stop chasing people who repeatedly show indifference. They stop sacrificing their peace for temporary validation. Instead, they begin making decisions that honor their own worth. This does not make them arrogant. It makes them grounded. There is a significant difference between arrogance and self-respect. Arrogance says, I am better than others. And self-respect says, I will not accept less than I deserve. Arrogance seeks superiority. Self-respect seeks dignity. One is driven by ego, the other is driven by wisdom. And wisdom understands that every relationship teaches people how to treat us. When you constantly tolerate disrespect, you unintentionally communicate that disrespect is acceptable. When you repeatedly overlook behavior that hurts you, you communicate that your feelings are not important. When you abandon your standards to keep someone in your life, you communicate that your fear of losing them is greater than your respect for yourself. This is why self-respect attracts appreciation. People are naturally drawn to those who know their worth, not because such individuals demand attention, but because they carry themselves differently. There is a quiet strength about them, a calm certainty and inner stability. They do not need to convince others of their value because they already believe in it themselves. And belief is powerful. The way you see yourself influences the way others see you. If you constantly question your own worth, others often sense that uncertainty. If you consistently honor your worth, others sense that confidence as well. This is why your relationship with yourself matters so much. Before anyone else can fully appreciate you, you must appreciate yourself. Before anyone else can respect you, you must respect yourself. Before anyone else can value your presence, you must value it first. Many people wait for external proof before they allow themselves to feel worthy. They tell themselves they will feel confident when someone chooses them. They will feel important when someone praises them. They will feel valuable when someone finally recognizes their efforts. But this approach places your happiness in someone else's hands, and anything controlled by another person can be taken away. The stronger path is different. The stronger path begins with an internal decision, a decision that says, my value is not determined by attention. My value is not determined by approval. My value is not determined by someone's ability to recognize what I bring into their life. This mindset creates emotional freedom because when your worth comes from within, rejection loses much of its power. Neglect loses much of its power. Disappointment loses much of its power. You stop seeing every setback as evidence that something is wrong with you. Instead, you recognize that other people's behavior often reflects their awareness, their maturity, and their character, not your value. This realization changes everything. You become less reactive, less needy, less fearful. You stop trying to force appreciation. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop trying to earn what should never have required earning in the first place. And ironically, this is often when people begin to appreciate you more. Because there is something deeply attractive about a person who respects themselves, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly and consistently. Such a person understands that their dignity is not negotiable. Their standards are not negotiable. Their peace is not negotiable. And this certainty commands respect without demanding it. So if someone has taken you for granted, do not spend your energy convincing them of your value. Spend that energy strengthening your self-respect, because the moment you truly recognize your own worth, you become possible to, after developing the strength of silence, establishing healthy boundaries, and building genuine self-respect. Another powerful principle begins to shape your character. It is emotional control. This is where many people either lose their power or strengthen it. And when someone takes you for granted, emotions naturally arise. You may feel hurt. You may feel disappointed. You may feel frustrated. You may even feel betrayed. These feelings are human. There is nothing wrong with experiencing them. The problem begins when emotions become your master instead of your guide. Many people allow their emotions to control their words, their actions, and their decisions. In moments of pain, they send messages they later regret. They make accusations they cannot take back. They react impulsively. They allow temporary emotions to create permanent consequences. And afterward, they wonder why the situation became worse instead of better. This is why emotional control increases influence. Influence is not created by intensity. Influence is created by stability. The person who remains calm when others become emotional often possesses the greatest power in any situation. Okay. Think about water during a storm. The surface may become violent, waves may crash, the wind may roar. Yet deep beneath the surface, there is stillness, there is calmness, there is balance. The strongest individuals learn to live from that deeper place. They do not deny their emotions. They simply refuse to become controlled by them. This distinction is important. Many people misunderstand emotional control. They believe it means suppressing feelings. They believe it means pretending nothing hurts. They believe it means becoming cold and distant. But true emotional control is not suppression. When someone takes you for granted, your emotions may urge you to chase them. Your emotions may urge you to demand answers. Your emotions may urge you to prove your worth. But wisdom asks a different question. Will this action improve the situation, or is it simply an emotional reaction? And this single question can change your life, because emotional reactions often provide temporary relief, but create long-term problems. Emotional control allows you to pause. It allows you to observe. It allows you to choose your response rather than becoming a prisoner of your impulses. Most people react. Few people respond. The difference between the two is enormous. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is guided by wisdom. Reaction seeks immediate satisfaction. Response seeks long-term growth. When you master this principle, you become difficult to manipulate. This is one of the greatest psychological advantages you can develop. People often gain power over others through emotional triggers. They know exactly what to say. They know exactly what to do. They know exactly how to provoke a reaction. And many people fall into the trap every single time. They become angry. They become defensive. They become desperate. They become emotionally overwhelmed. But when you develop emotional control, these triggers lose their effectiveness. You no longer react automatically. You no longer give others control over your emotional state. You remain centered. You remain balanced. You remain focused. And that stability commands respect, not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because emotional discipline is rare. In a world where many people are controlled by their feelings, the person who can remain composed stands apart. This does not mean you become emotionless. In fact, emotionally controlled people often feel more deeply than others. The difference is that they do not allow every feeling to become an action. They understand that emotions are temporary visitors. They come, they stay, they leave. There is no need to obey every emotion that arrives. There is only a need to observe it with awareness. Imagine standing on the side of a road, watching cars pass by. You see each vehicle, but you do not jump into every one of them. Emotions work the same way. You acknowledge them, you observe them, but you do not automatically follow them wherever they want to go. This level of discipline creates tremendous inner strength. When someone ignores you, you remain calm. When someone disappoints you, you remain grounded. When someone fails to appreciate your value, you remain connected to your own worth. Because your stability no longer depends on their behavior, it comes from within. And this inner stability changes how people perceive you. People notice when you stop reacting impulsively. They notice when you stop chasing validation. They notice when you stop allowing circumstances to control your mood. Like, there is a quiet confidence that emerges, a sense of maturity, a sense of self-mastery. And self-mastery is one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess, not only in relationships, but in every area of life. The truth is that emotional control benefits you far more than it influences anyone else. It protects your peace. It protects your judgment. It protects your dignity. It allows you to make decisions based on your values rather than your temporary feelings. And over time, this creates a life built on strength instead of reaction. So when someone takes you for granted, do not surrender your power to anger, frustration, or desperation. Feel your emotions, learn from them, but remain their master, because the person who controls their emotions ultimately controls the direction of their life. After mastering silence, establishing boundaries, strengthening self-respect, and developing emotional control, there comes a principle that transforms the way people see you and, more importantly, the way you see yourself. It is the principle of purpose. Many people lose themselves in relationships because they gradually make another person the center of their world. Their happiness depends on that person. Their motivation depends on that person. Their peace depends on that person. Their sense of worth depends on that person. Without realizing it, they begin to orbit around someone else's life while neglecting their own. This is where suffering often begins. Because the moment your entire identity becomes attached to another person, you become vulnerable to every change in their behavior. If they give attention, you feel good. If they become distant, you feel anxious. If they appreciate you, you feel valuable. If they overlook you, you question yourself. This creates emotional instability. And emotional instability weakens your presence. This is why purpose is more attractive than pursuit. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who have direction, toward individuals who have goals. Toward individuals who have a meaningful mission beyond seeking approval from others. Purpose creates a different kind of energy, a different kind of confidence, a different kind of strength. When someone takes you for granted, one of the most powerful things you can do is stop making them the focus of your attention and start investing that attention back into your own growth. Not because you are trying to punish them, not because you are trying to make them jealous, but because your life deserves your full commitment. And too often people spend years waiting for someone else to give them significance. They wait to feel chosen. They wait to feel appreciated. They wait to feel important. Meanwhile, their own dreams remain neglected. Their potential remains undeveloped. Their purpose remains undiscovered. Life becomes smaller because all their energy is directed toward one person. But purpose changes this completely. Purpose wakes you up in the morning with intention. Purpose gives meaning to your effort. Purpose reminds you that your existence is larger than any single relationship. When you have a meaningful goal, your mind becomes occupied with creation rather than obsession. You spend less time wondering why someone did not text you. You spend less time analyzing every conversation. You spend less time seeking validation because your attention is directed towards something productive, something valuable, something that contributes to your growth. This creates a powerful psychological shift. The less you chase approval, the more secure you become. The more secure you become, the more attractive your presence becomes, not because you are trying to attract anyone, but because confidence naturally grows when your life has direction. Think about the people you admire most. They are rarely individuals who spend their lives chasing attention. They are people committed to something greater than themselves. People who pursue excellence. People who remain dedicated to growth. People who continue moving forward regardless of who supports them or who doubts them. Their focus creates strength. and strength creates influence. When someone takes you for granted, they often expect you to remain exactly where they left you. They expect your attention to remain available. They expect your energy to remain focused on them. But purpose changes the entire dynamic. Purpose redirects your energy, it redirects your focus, it redirects your life. Instead of waiting for appreciation, you begin creating progress. Instead of chasing affection, you begin chasing excellence. Instead of seeking recognition, you begin building something meaningful. And there is something remarkable that happens when a person becomes deeply connected to their purpose. They stop appearing needy. They stop appearing desperate. They stop appearing dependent because their fulfillment no longer comes from external validation. It comes from internal growth. This is incredibly important. Many people believe attraction comes from saying the right words, or looking a certain way, or using psychological techniques, but lasting attraction often comes from something much deeper. It comes from witnessing someone who is fully engaged in their own life, someone who values their time. Someone who values their mission, someone who values their potential. There is a quiet magnetism in such a person, not because they are trying to impress anyone, but because they have stopped abandoning themselves. And when you stop abandoning yourself, people notice. Your conversations change, your posture changes, your mindset changes, your priorities change. You begin carrying yourself differently. There is less fear, less anxiety, less attachment, more confidence, more discipline, more peace. Even if the person who once took you for granted never changes, purpose ensures that your life continues moving forward. This is one of the greatest gifts purpose provides. It protects you from becoming trapped in disappointment, trapped in resentment, trapped in endless waiting. Purpose keeps you growing. Purpose keeps you learning. Purpose keeps you evolving. And growth is always more rewarding than obsession. Remember, the goal is never to make someone realize your worth. The goal is to become so committed to your own development that your worth becomes undeniable, both to yourself and to others. When your life revolves around purpose, you stop asking, how can I make them value me? Instead, you begin asking, how can I become the best version of myself? That question changes everything. Because the people who achieve greatness in any area of life are not those who spend their energy chasing validation. They are those who spend their energy pursuing purpose. Okay? So if someone has taken you for granted, return your focus to your mission, your growth, and your future. Because a person who walks with purpose never needs to beg for appreciation. Their life itself becomes proof of their value. As you continue this journey of silence, boundaries, self-respect, emotional control, and purpose, you begin to understand another truth about human nature that many people learn only through painful experience. It is the truth that absence reveals value. This principle is often misunderstood. Many people hear this idea and immediately think about strategies, games, or ways to make someone miss them. Okay, but that is not the deeper lesson. The deeper lesson is about awareness. When something is constantly available, people often stop noticing its importance, not because they are bad people, not because they are intentionally ungrateful, but because familiarity can sometimes create blindness. Human beings naturally adapt to what is consistently present in their lives: the air they breathe, the health they enjoy, the opportunities they possess, the people who continually support them. Many blessings become invisible simply because they are always there. This is why absence can be such a powerful teacher. It removes what was once taken for granted and creates space for awareness to emerge. Think about sunlight. Most people rarely stop to appreciate it during a normal day. Yet after many days of darkness, the return of sunlight feels extraordinary. The sunlight did not become more valuable. People simply became more aware of its value. Relationships often work in a similar way. When someone has become accustomed to your constant presence, They may stop recognizing the impact you have on their life. Your support becomes expected, your kindness becomes expected, your effort becomes expected, your attention becomes expected. What was once appreciated gradually becomes assumed, and when appreciation disappears, imbalance enters the relationship. This is where many people make a critical mistake. When they feel overlooked, they increase their effort, they give more, they explain more, they try harder, they become even more available, they believe greater effort will create greater appreciation. Yet in many situations, the opposite happens. The more they overextend themselves, the less their contribution is recognized. Why? Because value is not measured solely by quantity. Value is often revealed through awareness, and awareness frequently arrives through absence. When you step back from unhealthy patterns, something important occurs. Reality becomes visible. The constant flow of attention slows down. The endless availability disappears. The predictable support is no longer automatic. For the first time, the other person has an opportunity to experience life without the benefits they once received from you. And that experience creates clarity. Again, this is not about punishment. It is not about revenge. It is not about making someone suffer. It is about allowing truth to reveal itself naturally. Because no amount of explaining can replace genuine realization, people rarely appreciate a lesson that is forced upon them. They appreciate lessons they discover themselves. This is why absence can be more powerful than endless conversation. When someone experiences your absence, they are no longer listening to your words. They are experiencing your value directly. Okay? They notice what is missing. They notice what has changed. They notice the space you once filled. And that realization often carries more weight than any explanation ever could. Okay? At the same time, absence creates awareness within you as well. This is equally important. Many people assume absence is only about the other person. But some of the greatest insights emerge within your own mind. When you step back, you gain perspective. You begin to see the relationship more clearly. You begin to notice patterns you previously ignored. You begin to recognize whether the connection was truly balanced. You begin to understand whether your effort was being reciprocated or simply expected. Distance often reveals truths that proximity hides. When emotions are constantly activated, it becomes difficult to see clearly. When space is created, wisdom has room to emerge. You begin asking better questions. Was I appreciated or merely available? Was I valued or simply convenient? Was this relationship built on mutual respect or one-sided effort? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Because clarity is always more valuable than illusion. Sometimes absence leads another person to recognize your worth. Sometimes it leads them to change. Sometimes it leads them to appreciate what they once overlooked. Okay? But sometimes it reveals something different. Sometimes it reveals that the relationship was sustained only by your effort. Sometimes it reveals that your presence was expected but not truly valued. And while that realization may hurt, it is still a gift because truth allows growth. Illusion keeps people trapped. A person committed to self-respect welcomes truth, even when it is painful, because growth cannot occur without honesty. The strongest individuals understand that they cannot force appreciation. They cannot force awareness. They cannot force someone to recognize their value. What they can do is stop interfering with reality. They can stop compensating for another person's lack of effort. They can stop carrying the entire relationship alone. Right? They can step back and allow the truth to become visible, and whatever is real will reveal itself. This requires courage because absence often creates uncertainty. You may wonder what will happen. Okay? You may wonder what the other person will think. You may wonder whether they will notice. But these questions become less important as your confidence grows because eventually you realize something profound. Okay? The purpose of absence is not to make someone come back. The purpose of absence is to reveal what is genuine. Whether that truth strengthens the connection or exposes its weakness, it provides the clarity necessary for growth. and clarity is always a gift. So when someone takes you for granted, do not be afraid to step back with dignity and wisdom, because what is truly valuable does not need to be forced into recognition. Time and absence will reveal its worth naturally. As you move through these lessons of silence, boundaries, self-respect, emotional control, purpose, and understanding the value of absence, you arrive at the final and perhaps most important principle of all. Inner peace is greater than external validation. This is the lesson that separates temporary confidence from lasting strength. Many people spend their entire lives searching for validation. They want to be chosen. They want to be admired. They want to be appreciated. They want others to confirm that they are valuable. At first, this desire seems natural. Every human being wants connection. Every human being wants acceptance. Every human being wants to feel seen and understood. But a problem begins when validation becomes a necessity instead of a preference. When your peace depends on someone else's approval, you become emotionally vulnerable. Your happiness rises and falls according to their behavior. A compliment makes your day. A criticism ruins it. A message excites you. A delayed response creates anxiety. A moment of attention gives you confidence. A moment of distance creates doubt. Without realizing it, your emotional state becomes controlled by forces outside yourself. And anything controlled by external circumstances can never provide lasting stability. This is why inner peace is so powerful. Inner peace is not the absence of challenges. It is the ability to remain centered despite them. It is the ability to remain grounded even when life does not unfold according to your expectations. It is the ability to maintain your self-worth regardless of who notices it and who does not. When someone takes you for granted, your mind immediately wants answers. Why are they acting this way? What changed? What did I do wrong? How can I make them appreciate me again? These questions can consume enormous amounts of energy. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and sometimes people spend years trapped in this cycle, waiting for understanding, and waiting for recognition, waiting for validation. Yet peace begins the moment you stop making another person's behavior the center of your emotional world. This does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop surrendering your well-being. There is a profound difference between the two. A wise person can care deeply while remaining emotionally balanced. A wise person can love fully while maintaining inner stability. A wise person can experience disappointment without allowing disappointment to define their life. This is the strength that inner peace provides. Imagine a mountain standing beneath changing weather. Some days the sky is clear, some days storms arrive, some days strong winds blow across its surface. Yet the mountain remains where it is. It does not lose itself because conditions change. Its foundation remains intact. Your inner world must become like that mountain because people will change, circumstances will change, relationships will change. Life itself will change. If your peace depends on conditions remaining perfect, peace will always remain temporary. But if your peace comes from within, external circumstances lose much of their power over you. This is what makes inner peace greater than validation. Velen is temporary, peace is enduring. Velen depends on others. Peace depends on your relationship with yourself. Valentone comes and goes. Peace remains available regardless of circumstances. Many people spend years trying to control how others see them. They carefully choose their words. They carefully manage their image. They constantly seek reassurance. Yet no matter how hard they try, they can never fully control another person's perception. People will misunderstand you. People will fail to appreciate your value. This is simply part of life. The moment you accept this truth, a tremendous burden disappears. You stop trying to win every person's approval. You stop exhausting yourself trying to be enough for everyone. You stop carrying the impossible responsibility of managing other people's